Amo non ga doi nyam be sem chen tam je de wa dong de dong er dong de xin yo re de la na me bar ayang da bar zo be chang ren bo je do ba jiao.
Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
我别业界的桑那解决我这的令啊一送给我来过那些我的令啊一送给我来过的送的。年马赛大总结我的恋爱也送给我老公。
All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teaching, and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Idams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sangha. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom.
我南边大大两边三片当街，交接的送接地接一挂当姐姐，各种都有点着了当姐姐，我就是我就接碰碰动着姐姐在见中呢。马别跟的当姐姐，我到天津做我当就把这姐姐把的老妈。我弄来就是这，我也当经过了这老早也弄来就是这我。上街今天的弄了就是这我，特别就弄了就是这我。好比跟的弄来就是这我，把我看着这种送美，做一些简单的把弄来就是这我。
Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path.
哦讲究年波节节我上节弄了就是节，就当讲究什么也错浪的人就是节，节到我节的节，讲究都那节不当。讲究身边老婆来得到人品的报道，提前到了看懂的，讲究身的姐姐心。
and Deshi.
Indone la ba la, Rinpa Hindu la ba je o.
In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
做见众生，老一将尊，见做一见所能见，见所一见所能，见所一见所，
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
我南无南无东嘎当，南无三千当劫，东阿当，东阿给觉当，这瓦来觉见。
And
东阿来没别的瓦当门的瓦觉见，念人交代念当知。当娘来涅巴来就见。
refuge of all sentient beings without exception, divine subjugator of terrifying maras, together with their hosts of demons, the one who understands all realities without exception exactly as they are, transcendent conqueror, together with your disciples, please come here to this place.
变作了什么？变作了什么？变作了什么？变作了什么？变作了什么？我那么来见见见就是别，就能过来见念的。耶稣说：“二杠不定不变，对变阿赖的，人的你为的小道不的造耶稣。”
The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confessing, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate.
他们皆作别将就见不。
Namo, to the Lama of utterly pure appearance and existence, I offer the fundamental ground of appearance and existence. I supplicate you to thoroughly liberate the three realms. Please grant your blessings and overturn the depths of samsara. Sublime Master, wish fulfilling jewel, crown ornament the inconceivable, inexpressible mind of the victorious ones, the one endowed with the five wisdoms of omniscience, gracious one, the embodiment of love. And precious protector of beings, I supplicate you from within the essence of mind. Please grant your blessings from within the innate nature. Please bless me that I may realize the Dharmakaya that is beyond intellect, this primordially unborn, completely mine. Transcend and conquer, the one thus gone, foe destroyer of afflictive emotions, completely perfected Buddha, endowed with logic and virtue, the one gone to bliss, knower of the world, captain, tamer of beings, the unexcelled teacher of gods and men, I respectfully prostrate, completely touching my head to the stainless feet of the unequal Shakya king. At the time of your birth, leader of two-legged beings, taking 7 steps on this great earth, you proclaimed, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise even then, I prostrate. Possessing a body of complete purity, your sublime form is excellent. An ocean of primordial wisdom, you are like a golden mountain. The one whose renown is evident throughout the 3 worlds, protector of supreme attainment, to you I prostrate. To you who are endowed with the supreme marks, whose face is like an immaculate moon, to you, the one with a complexion like gold, I prostrate. A flawless one such as you, among the 3 levels of existence, is most exquisite. Unparalleled, omniscient one, to you I prostrate. Supreme among humans, captain of those to be tamed, the one thus gone who severs the all-binding fetters, who with senses pacified is utterly pacified and skilled in peace. To that one, the one who dwelled at Travasti, I prostrate. Refuge endowed with great compassion, totally omniscient one who indicates the way, ground basis for oceans of merit and qualities, I prostrate to the one thus gone. The pure cause, free from attachments, the virtue that liberates from the lower realms, the altogether supreme ultimate truth, to the pacifying Dharma I prostrate. Having been liberated, they also reveal the path to liberation. Thoroughly respectful of the 3 higher trainings, they are a field of sublime qualities. To the Sangha I also prostrate.
Namo Nose Namda Ge Lama La
And
Nose Yergen Se Joba Be Gamso Yongda Da Zorwa Yenda Ngurwa Tongdo Se Jenje Lo Je Je Norwa Zo Ge Je Ma sama jo me jo ve to jen be ye ye nga dan den an je ve dan ye ga de jen do wa jun ze ren bo je da sim ni je ngang ne zo wa de chu ni je ngang de jen je lo de me nang da de lo de ju ge do ba re jian jie lo jiang de de ji ye ba da jiang ba yang da ba zo be san jie re ba da ya zhen de ba de ba re ye ba an jie dan jian ba an jie wen de ba ka lo jiu ba la na me ba la da me nam jie dong ba nian mi xiao jie jia ba xiao jie de zhen ma me ba la ngo wo rao de do de 各位讲者来，刚才刚念作为就当在所见的那公白的我人，我年纪的那就接送的人给把起来讲在路。当大公安找的祖宗，我一切讲做世界人不道。按照把这的从那那年我公布就年节来讲在了。年前面的一些生多着我起来讲在了。对着就这是把从这一年面渐渐起来讲在了。 门中对话卡路将在见更久了青蛙将在天眼睛。王婆学当年也学郎给年有小巴的来将在喽。公婆多结结等婆，他们结前别东婆婆。所那用的将走心，提前也来将在喽。他边到家这位就给位眼中来着心，这个东南角角外，些角来出来将在喽。说那周日狼阳东，喇叭到了绕这个。先给他们用点钱，给的老杨想走路。
I prostrate to the youthful Manjushri, to those in the worlds of the 10 directions, however many there are, all the lions among humans who appear during the 3 times, to all of them without exception, I pay homage with respectful body, speech, and mind. The force of my aspiration prayer for excellent conduct brings all the victorious ones directly to mind. Bowing down with bodies as numerous as atoms in the realms, I prostrate to all the victorious ones. In a single atom, there are Buddhas as numerous as atoms, each residing in the midst of their sons and daughters. Like that, I imagine the whole Dharmadhatu completely filled with victorious ones. To those with oceans of inexhaustible, praiseworthy qualities, with sounds containing oceans of tones of melodic speech, I express the qualities of all the victorious ones. I praise all the Sugatas. With the finest flowers, the finest garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, supreme lamps, and the finest incense, I make offerings to the victorious ones. With the finest cloths, supreme scents, and fine powders equal to Mount Meru, all displayed in supreme and magnificent ways, I make offerings to those victorious ones. With vast and unsurpassable offerings, I venerate all the victorious ones. Through the power of faith and excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to the victorious ones. Whatever negative actions I have performed with body, speech, and also mind, overpowered by desire, aggression, and stupidity, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in everyone's merit, the victorious ones of the 10 directions, the bodhisattvas, the pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, those beyond training, and all beings. I request the protectors, the lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who passing through the stages of awakening, attain Buddhahood beyond attachment, to turn the unsurpassable Dharma wheel. I supplicate with my palms joined together those who intend to demonstrate nirvana, to remain for kalpas as numerous as atoms in the realms, for the welfare and happiness of all beings. I dedicate whatever slight virtue is accumulated through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating to enlightenment. Sorry, the bouquet loya Okay, so then to the request for teachings. Please turn the Dharma of the 2 vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
三界南界三宝道，多也皆大皆大王，且君对莫对法也，这见高罗高德颂。当天都结下结来三种，现见麦多对结梦中报，三界龙宝到我的结别个，小结结被小拉个张嘴，没有我在道结经过了的，没这些经我接到，他们这谁把跟前去结结。面对我人间各长子，无名 密修坚严结保障的，对我上界跟结我呢，老什么就跟我什么同在。在那没叫了个叫在，刚到手这个东西就点了，这些我们就是我刚收到。啊，天天东北求见叫人别跑，什么人都当今的也行。那么呀，他也给当路上的几个，中到他没给他们呢，都跟着这给结账吧。他们这个的大概就等到。So good morning and good evening. 听他听个做，다 갈색거리, 추라 되네. 개침보래, 근데 텔레양 개침보 인바신토라, 맞아 지 추기다 토바 치야당, 다 지, 텔레냠렌 치야들라, 다 맞아 창마 되네, 지 송침보레스.
So to start with, just reflecting on how precious and important the Dharma is, and really to have this opportunity to like listen to and engage with the Dharma, to practice the Dharma, this is a sign of our really great merit. It's a lot of merit to have, these circumstances.
되네, 다 좋은 거 줘. 추 년비게 까울라트네. 다 추는 탐지 젠신도 둔비젤라랍트네 송고래 다 되는 거죠 샘게 되네. 둔바 둔바 태양 되네. 제가 맞아 될 정도와 어 지 갈사고래 되네. 현배 인지 데려와 제가 개침보레스.
And so when we listen to the Dharma, so there's a famous line that says, um, since all phenomena are dependent upon conditions which arise based on pure motivation or a perfect motivation. So, um, that indicates the importance of the role of intention or motivation in our activities, especially our Dharma activities. And so, when we engage in something like this, where we're listening to Dharma teachings, giving Dharma teachings, it's really important to actively generate a pure mind state, a pure intention, one that is based on compassion, one that is based on the wish to bring benefit to others.
다 닝지지 지도 다 조갈세는 거저 데리라. 참 챙기려와 뒤인도 나 대신 도구 요와 나 신비게 심전탐치려야 대신 도구 요러와 뒤인도 대치도야 게 탑조디 되네 다 조들이다 현변 맞다 지 para 노드도 휴이나 되네 참바세야 닝지세야 되네 장접 샘세야 되네지 연구요레스.
Um, and so when we give rise to a mind of compassion, we do so, first of all, thinking about our own needs, our own wants, and we think about how, we want to be happy. And just like we want to be happy, all sentient beings are in the same situation as we are, and that everybody wants to be happy. And so that is mainly where this wish to benefit, or the altruistic intent, the mind that wishes to benefit others, comes from, is by really understanding that sameness, relating with the needs and desires of others, by understanding our own needs and desires, and then wishing for what we wish on behalf of others. And so this is what leads us to be able to have a real sense of love, loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta.
다들 소리 가서 삼바자 체와 소리 삼바자 체와 장초 섬지 꾸노 송도와 다조 갈세난 가서 삼바자 첨보대 세두 샘자 첨보대 빼개 첨보대 디인디 당 가서디 지켄디 키나라 되네 지 레카 갈세고래지 강에 강야매와 연구요 말이다 강에 다조 체효디 지랑게 당지당 대단냠들 지다 용문바 아 ngala sobi ke jian qi ne de nga zo da ya gang yi ji ti yo lo wa wa ta di gang yi di ka le se bi na cham le nga zo kang za ka xie la qi ki yu la de ne ji gang yi se ne ji kwa yin ne yang de ne ji nang ke se na gang yi me wa de yong gu yo de ya kang za nga xie yin ne
Wait, Karela?
강상 가시이나 뭐 가시 고지 강이 충중들이 지유 강이 충중이나 고 선발 빼 항상 강에는 속여로 와 디 리젠데 가르세나 그 샘자 제중레스 된당 가서 샘자 충중요나 고자 친구장 요레스 삼바자 제와 슬랍도
And so, together with this pure motivation, we also practice expanding our mind, making our mind really vast. And that, like a true intention or mind of bodhicitta, is a really vast mind state. And really, if we think about, all of the hardships and difficulties that people experience in the world, mainly that comes from the mind of self-grasping. The amount that we suffer is directly in correlation with the mind of self-grasping. From self-grasping, then this is what supports all the other afflictive emotions. And so when we have a vast mind, there's less self-grasping. And when there's more self-grasping, the mind is very narrow, it's very small. And so when that's the case, we have really strong reactions to little things. So for instance, there are some like outer conditions can easily cause us to get really bent out of shape, to cause us to get upset, to cause us to get angry, to cause us to get worried. And this amount of afflictive reaction to outer objects is really in proportion to like how expansive or how small our mind is, like how expansive or how narrow. And so when we practice making our mind more expansive, we also have a lot less difficulty and hardship. We're able to sort of bear, different challenges with more ease. And this is also directly in connection with our mind of goodwill, love, and compassion, and less self-centeredness or self-grasping.
디니다 삼바 창접 센서 다 가서 지 되네 장적 셈 세나리 다 참바 세나리 닝게테 세나리 다 디게 고 당어도 참례 가서 갈세나 마다 마치 비고를 상노다나 디네 가족이 힘바지를 가서 재와치야 힘바지를 닝게 와다 텐디 집이 까라 이제 마타마치 빙고라 칸디지 요레 스큐비나 텐디 현티게 통다 인본로지 연구 요르티나 야 리얼리티 텐디 마리스 엔디티네 대송도와 현변 탐지 란데주 소레 맞아 현변도 집이나 텐디 티킨 드유 디지테 나라 용그레 송로와 아
And so when we hear words like this, like love, compassion, bodhicitta, and if we kind of just take them at face value, if we don't really examine or investigate what is really involved here, then we think that these are mind states that benefit others, that it's really for the sake of others that we have these mind states. But the truth of the matter is, it's the direct opposite. It actually ends up benefiting ourselves first and foremost to have those altruistic intentions, those, noble mind states. In reality, um, whenever we are focused on the welfare and benefit of others, whenever we have love in our hearts, this brings happiness first and foremost to ourselves.
다 대양 가서 하고 그래. 다시 지그러와. 상제 기타 종래 되네. 개론 타강. 개 남지스. 에, 스키 다비. 세르힌드. 렉바다라. 나예가 랑와차이 그 체면. 손래. 어디에 되네. 녜게 랍샤조디. 베나 세르송이 케바지에게 같이 거스나. 세티 모네제린도 문도라서 베트네. 직제야 아이나리 다리아 아이나리 메타야 아이나리 하코 그레스 답기 치그레스 어 베트나 이게 산이 좀 된데 그게 랍샤바디 되게 지랑서 덴바리멘도 다지 치고레스 네 랍샤바데 까노 드니 마레스 티인디티니 다티 랍샤죠 테티니 다 덴바리 사나 냠네 치고레스
And so if you really invest, so the Buddha has said that he's said, you shouldn't just take my words at face value. You shouldn't just blindly believe in them because I have said it is so. But you should really look, you should really put them to the test, investigate, just like a goldsmith would really test the substance of gold that he has to make sure that it's really pure gold. That he would, burn it in the fire. He would make sure, he would polish it to make sure that it isn't some contaminated substance, but that it's actually pure gold. And so, in the same way, the Buddha has advised his followers not to just have blind faith, not to just take his teachings for granted or just believe that they're so without having any reason to believe that. But instead, he said you should put them to the test. You should really see whether it is that they are true or not, and not just to take them at face value.
다 되나 송반나기 다 가서 지 원데 인제로와 가서 인제 집에 두줄라 가서 다 그래스 류로 간데도 서로가 간데도 근데 다 그래스 이는 가서 인제 요베 갑라 와 지 양면나 저 요베 갑라 지 류양 되고 세명 되고 걔네 거지 오픈만데 베라와 트리지 연구요레스 텐데 다지 치그레스 어서 출발지 필링지 랭고 요레스 텐에다 오 참바다 니 장교 선바 짜청벌이 섬그러와 오다디 도쇼테 카레 라비나 테네 샤당레 테네 와 아제레 차도레 텐디인디 다 텐디라 코지 차도 누보레 삼바 마임바 라와 샤당 누보레 삼바 마임바 탐보 코로 출발지 랭고 요레 웬와 해당 란데베 가라가 칸디스도 저와 지보도에 지보면도에 루일라 호원도에 삼라 호원도 따그러와 이네 해당 베다 뇽몬바 소나 뇽보 톡 레라우도 톡솜 거서 마치스다 제너럴 냄들라 칼라고 톡솜라고 그래 톡 세야데 다 가자 강하시게 되네 가서 톡 나오지 소비나 다 지워요만 나기로와 나기리 직진 희기로와 다 패턴 이렇게 그 되어요 말이 되는데 이제 가서 용문 봐 되네 단다 해당 차도 가지 다 된대들라 지금 출발련지 백갑로 야고요 말이 되오면도 다 되는데 괜찮음 너무 당와 다 망치 있음 그러 가다 해당 랑기면 랍두지 해당 말라나 가지고 그럼 막아위게 되네 다다 어디 통다인 바로 삼그러와 근데 말에 다 통다 말와 원이지 랑 통다라와 랑 컨트롤 사이드에 가라 지고요 말에 어다 들라서 버렸어
And likewise, so we can investigate in the same way as the Buddha advised us to. So, for instance, when it comes to these beneficial mind states like love and compassion, we should really examine, like when compassion is present in our heart and mind, how do we feel? What is the sensation? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? When we have goodwill towards others, what is the sensation in our body and in our mind when we're like really open-minded and generous? What is the feeling that accompanies that? And then we generally will really start to see how precious those mind states are, how much happiness and well-being they really bring. And this will incline us more and more in the direction of wanting to generate them. On the other hand, we should also investigate the opposite. When we have an afflicted mind state that's present, when we're angry, when we're in a state of arrogance, when we're jealous, what are the sensations that accompany those emotions? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? How do we feel? Is our body relaxed? Is our body and mind relaxed, or are we tight? Are we constricted? Are we in pain? Is there some discomfort there? And this becomes really evident with the three poisons. We can see that what accompanies the three poisons naturally is suffering. And we call them the three poisons for that reason, because they're really like poison. The effect that they have on the body and mind is like poison. Um, and so uh and so in this way, we can investigate and then really come to understand that it isn't so much the object. Like normally we attribute, for instance, our negative emotions to the object. We think that it's the object's fault. We have some enemy, it's the enemy's fault that we are feeling this way. But it's not really the enemy's fault. It's our own mind that is responsible for the state that the mind state that has arisen. And so then when we're really seeking, our own best interests, like when we really know what's good for ourselves, then we will really easily be able to move away from that kind of blaming it on the object and instead just adjusting our mind state. Mhm.
Karsina nga tsuta khonro sagi men sirwa. Hedang lang men ro labdu. Hedang mai lang na parjo ke object le pen yo wan ro samo bangrawa. Ni mares.
And we also
Endo nga tso yo res.
we also will start to see that, we tend to think, sometimes we think, oh, okay, if I'm working with my anger, I don't want to be angry, at this person. But and in our mind, there's this idea that our effort to not be angry is for the other person. But that's actually not the case. It's for ourselves.
어디가 나이다 당길라 임바.
Mhm.
nga tso nyum ba de thok la borwa.
And for this reason, we can,
Thok
again.
labdu karsina tso nagirwa.
Mhm.
Chechina higirwa. 어디에 다 nyum ba 지 단다다 nga tso gyul 강요비 나러와. 해당 자도 렌셈 다 nga tso samdala nga tso worry. 다 가래 요비나 대도 상마나 딱고 가세 거지. physical like poison다고 차디어리스.
And so again, we call the afflicted mind states, we call them poisons. And if we eat poison, if we take poison, we get really sick. We get really sick and maybe we die. And so we can see that the afflictions are really like poison, especially when they're really habituated, like anger, jealousy, competitiveness, anxiety. When we feed those mind states, it's like taking poison.
다 디인도 다 대양한테네 다 맞은 디 냠란치야 그 줌센데 카레스 라비나 아 맞아 다 단다 용바이네 야 람상 빵터베 요 말에 야 맞아 냠말라 확샤지 샤샤 요래 근데 인도 그 확자도 cham버 지발라 되네 두고 그러와. 되는 다
Mhm.
가서 탑 넘버 나서 제기 요래. 배나 가장 대전이가 와서 공부를 다 대전이가 와디 양 탑지 그래. 좋아. 아, 주님네 지야. 탑시지. 그와 배나 자기가 대전 물린디게 네 장바곰 그 투구요와 닝교곰 투구요와 셴페지 투구요와 대전 물린디게 되네. 지금 용모 봐도 상말라 빵 투구요와 오다 딜리게 테네 양 탑지 그레스 테네 테네 루트 자체 모임 봐 루트된 티게 토네 테네 지 농문바 동아 독송라서 뭐야 빠네 테네 가장 저기 디나 티어와 가서 가서 거치 디나 테네 지 농문바 그 다네 테네 티게랑 예라 테네 이행아 차야 我提用过的是，我老过我打提那个就提了，今年搞我提样，搞这个塔吉格的是，
Mhm. Um, so the reason we practice, we dedicate ourselves to practice, the whole point of our practice is to overcome these poisons, these afflicted mind states. And we can't expect to immediately be able to just give them up. It's not so easy. And that's why we have so many different methods. So all of the different types of Dharma practices are different skillful means or methods to be able to overcome or these afflicted mind states, to tame the mind. And so, what we're doing now, for instance, reflecting on the four thoughts that turn the mind. So, when we reflect on the difficulty of achieving a precious human rebirth with leisures and endowments, we can relate to that in the context of this need to generate these altruistic mind states of love, compassion, and bodhicitta, that without a precious human life, we wouldn't have the capacity to actually cultivate those qualities. We wouldn't have, these methods available to us to be able to abandon the afflictive emotions. And so, for that reason, this precious human life is so valuable, so precious, and profound. And so it provides us with the opportunity and all of the methods needed to abandon the five poisons, to overcome the five poisons. So in the poetry or the poem that Drupal Rinpoche wrote for this section on impermanence, one of the lines he said is, what are, also impermanent are the afflictive emotions, the five afflictive emotions. So these are the nature of impermanence, in that they can be transformed, they can be purified or liberated into the pure nature of the five wisdoms. And so this is also, so here we have these two first two contemplations of both the way that precious human life provides the opportunity, and also impermanence, the reality of impermanence, also allows us to understand how workable the situation is, that we can transform our negative habits, we can transform these afflicted mind states, we can liberate the five poisons.
我听你打这个那也天脚吉没有咋清楚听那样，我嘛说打，这太阳打白个让伊嘛因吧，没打白个让伊因吧的打，听你的我说打，老早能把去，去去闹呢的呢，你把打个种我说没打吧送的，打没打吧太阳的呢个种打我说 rob 怎么的 Q 的，的呢去去的呢，呃，弄进几天没打吧是，我是一直有的。
So, since we are focusing, we're going into this contemplation on the second of the four thoughts that turn the mind, or that turn the mind away from samsara. we have the contemplation on impermanence. And so we just started the first of the different ways of analyzing the truth of impermanence, which is first really contemplating or investigating the way in which the outer container or the world, the outer environment expresses impermanence. So if we can have, does anyone have, should I screen share or maybe Zoldi, do you want to bring up that reflection, that page? Oh, okay. This is the poem.
Yeah, maybe you read that one first.
Okay. The mission
Okay.
So would somebody like to read the poem? Janelle, would you like to unmute and read the poem for us?
Sure, I can.
Thank
The
you.
outer world is impermanent, ever cycling through phases of formation and destruction. The inner inhabitants are impermanent, never breaking from the cycle of birth and death. Negativities and downfalls are impermanent. If cleansed with antidotes, they can be purified. The five afflictions are impermanent. They can be liberated into the essence of primordial awareness. Samsara is impermanent. It can be liberated into nirvana.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have another one.
Dini dampo de kongso yang de chik songi somya ki assignment to chobere labna.
Beautiful.
Tata labna digere.
Mm.
So also, Drivan Rinpoche and I discussed that. So an assignment that he would like to give to those of you who are interested is just like he had the same thing where he had a short poem or just, like a verse, of several, however many lines on the topic of precious human life, and now he's done the same with impermanence. So again, so many of you wrote some really beautiful reflections on precious human life. So for those of you who are interested, we would like to invite you to also write your own reflections on impermanence. Just a short, verse, and you can share that in the WhatsApp group if you would like. And perhaps we can have also the opportunity for different people to share their own individually.
Okay. So now we can read Tibet, or you just only English? Yeah, just the English.
But pache de dang nyam de chego sarwa. So we'll recite then these recitations in English with Dang Yopa or Mepa?
Yeah,
Okay. So we'll just read without the melody. Oh, everything is impermanent and subject to death. All our worldly affairs are ultimately superfluous. The 8 worldly concerns are like the colors of a rainbow. Oh, think about it. Can we really rely on them or not? So then the next one.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, someone else maybe.
Yeah.
Danny, is that Danny? Yeah, would you like to read the next verse?
Yeah, thank you. We won't remain long and death is certain. Therefore, we must quickly achieve liberation. Like the shadow of the setting sun, we are impermanent and we have to pass on. Abandoning laziness and indifference kindly fire like diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. How about Deepa? Would you like to read the next one?
Sure. From the Sutra of Vast Play, This life is impermanent like autumn clouds. The birth and death of beings is like watching a dance. The lifespan of beings is like a lightning flash in the sky. It goes more quickly than the flow of a steep waterfall.
Thank you.
This life is impermanent like autumn clouds. The birth and death of being like watching a dance. The lives of being flash like lightning in the sky, flowing by more quickly than a waterfall.
Thank you.
I think I read twice.
That's okay. That was the second one was with melody. It was
Oh,
but it's fine. It's always good to hear it twice.
That in that was order wood, or impermanence, and the impermanence of the inner.
Inner inhabitants.
Inhabitants.
Ini andi sama lo yung marawati.
Tangato logi starting to the order impermanence T or that young loss and this is Sulo and
The paragraph ready la.
Okay.
So la loki.
Katanga to the T or the lawyer Marisito.
So then we have these different sections, categories for reflection. So the first one is reflecting on the impermanence of the outer world. And then the second one is reflecting on the impermanence of the inner inhabitants, in other words, living beings. Third is our own impermanence, the impermanence of this life. And then fourth is reflecting on the benefits of meditating on impermanence. So what we have first is this reflection. And so you may remember that with Precious Human Life, we had a similar thing with each of the 18 leisures and endowments, much shorter. But here we have a longer reflection on first the impermanence of the outer world, and then soon we'll be sending you another reflection or just some, some material that provides guidance for reflection on the inner inhabitants. So we can read through these, maybe one paragraph at a time. So perhaps Thomas, would you like to read the first paragraph?
Sure.
Thank you.
The impermanence of the outer world. The outer world is the nature of impermanence. In our galaxy, every moment stars are being destroyed and new stars are being born. The earth seems so solid and everlasting to us. We take it for granted and think of it being the ever-present backdrop to reality, but the earth itself is displaying constant transformation and change. At one point, the entire earth was covered in water, and it is said that eventually, when this kalpa comes to a close, the earth will be destroyed in stages by fire, water, and wind, and all that will be left is empty space.
Thank you. Valerie, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Sure. There are the natural processes of impermanence, but in addition to that, we also currently witness man-made destruction on a rapid scale. Our planet, comprised of the four elements, is so beautiful and with so many different ecosystems and a complex web of biodiversity. It used to be that the elements were in balance, but now they are quite drastically out of balance, and things are changing very fast. Glaciers are melting, sea levels are rising, temperatures are getting hotter, and weather patterns are becoming more extreme.
Thank you. Brittany, would you like to read this next paragraph?
Thank you, Virginia and Drupal. Throughout the course of each year, we witness impermanence reflected in the changing seasons with cycles of decay, renewal, and countless subtle transitions that occur day to day, and even moment to moment. In spring, we see flowers blooming, only to shed their petals days later. Days start to lengthen until they peak in summer and then begin to shorten again. The summer rains come with ever increasing humidity and heat, and soon we transition into autumn. The leaves start to change their color, dry up, and fall. The air grows sharper, and the sunlight takes on a crisp glow. With winter, there is more stillness. The trees are bare. Sometimes there is ice and snow. Animals go into hibernation, and birds migrate to warmer climates, and before long, the signs of spring begin to show again. Each season flows into the next without clear boundaries, and the cycle of transformation and change continues on without pause.
Thank you, Brittany. David, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Sure. Impermanence is constantly displaying itself in the outer world at all times, everywhere. Yet our habit is so strong to still grasp onto things as solid and unchanging. An important aspect of our practice is to remember to notice the signs of impermanence around us, to become sensitized to them, the changing positions of shadows throughout the day, clouds forming and dissipating in the sky, weather patterns shifting from hour to hour, a hot cup of coffee gradually cooling, fresh fruit ripening and eventually spoiling, steam rising and disappearing from hot food, the temporary nature of hunger and fullness, fatigue that comes and goes, moods and emotions that rise and fade, physical pain that eventually subsides, clothes wearing out over time, cars and appliances aging and breaking down, conversations beginning and ending, relationships evolving or drifting apart, children growing up and changing, the passing of each moment of consciousness. The list could go on and on without end.
Thank you. Lakey, would you like to read this last paragraph?
As we experience this never-ending unfolding of transformation and change in the outer world, we can see that time is very precious, and we have to be very careful not to let our precious time be lost in states of carelessness and distraction or meaningless endeavors. We should be careful not to waste even a fraction of moment and try to always remain focused on what is truly meaningful in this life, reflecting again and again on the impermanence we see in the outer world. We can direct our thoughts, words, and deeds in the direction of authentic Dharma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
我的电影的，当我做的开始呢，但是他做介绍的，几天的去弄了，我做参加忙不就多过个的是，几天的参加一边那里，呢，就打让我上班都给，特别参加生的，几天的去哇，what to do things this life, important things, 제가 나 얘기 되는 가서 담배추 도구 거래 담배추 도비하달라요. 투주 등거리 단계 공휴어와 지금 레라오 지금 용모방 가서 하 고비나요. 고 가서 투주지 마트미나 되네 매워서 두고 말와 투주 고구 거래스. 디엔도 되네. 다 디게 투주들라 되네. 지금 돌아마탕 와드다. 저 제가 개천보레스.
So, by reflecting in this way on the impermanence we see all around us, then the effect that it can have is that it really sort of sets us with a strong intention, to achieve our purpose in this life, to really stay focused on, what is really important. And so for those of us who are Dharma practitioners, that inevitably means practicing the Dharma. But in order to practice the Dharma, we have to make time for it, because you see, time is constantly getting shorter and shorter. It's always there's never any pause. So we have to set aside, we have to make the time to be able to devote ourselves to practice. If we don't, then we know, the strong habits, the propensities of the afflicted mind states, those just arise naturally. So we have to create conditions or circumstance, a time, set time aside to really work on it, to really dedicate ourselves to the practice of, working with this, practicing Dharma. And so otherwise we won't be able to really tame our minds. So in this way, then we become inspired not to waste our time, to not let those opportunities go to waste.
테니다 트리다 빼는 것도 용바티 창고구나 저조고 요래 내가 너 얘기한 거다 빼나 차샤비나 소놈지 초사고 그러와 소놈 차서 소놈 초사고는 저조고 요래스 근데 빼나 하나도 효과서 대바지 찌거나요 되네 방법 좀 생각하고 그래 담배 주로와 좀세 리즈에버 좀세 하고 되네 대바지 그래서와 되네 좀세 하고네 되네 가서지 이치 그래서 되네 다 담보 공랭 가서지 이 조조 이 뒤에 조조 대바지 조조 요 말이스 그 참말라 take time 로와 또 중국 요래스 되네 다 가서 내가 침부터서 some 땅에 되네 가서다 기가세 거래 not waste the time.
So, for example, we need time. We need to create the time and the container to work with our minds to be able to purify the afflictive emotions. We also have to create the time for accumulating merit. We also have to create the time and the space for cultivating the qualities that we wish to cultivate, like faith, based on reason, based on understanding. So if it isn't actually like faith just comes naturally, this takes active cultivation and a reasonable faith that's based on understanding, that's based on contemplation, that's based on really seeing like the direct benefits of the Dharma, for instance. And so all of this requires time. Without time, then we won't be able to purify our minds. We won't be able to cultivate the qualities, the beautiful qualities of the heart and mind.
어다 디인도 이나 양당가 저 참여하고 그랬어. 지 투수 초라 땅게 obstacle scenario 다 빼먹어 요래스. 디인도다 지 나저 양의 검디마 주나 양아 저 투수 초라 땅야 강 디가나 언로스 그랬어와. 등장 테크놀로지로와 다 갈세 그래. 난다면 요러와다.
So, as that's the case, we also have to acknowledge kind of the danger, if you will, or the obstacle that we definitely confront. There are so many things that arise or that cross our paths that can become obstacles or that can cause us that end up becoming a waste of time. Especially, maybe one of the biggest ones, for instance, being technology, or just like diversions, that we have in our modern age. So, anything that causes us to sort of procrastinate, to put aside our practice, to put aside, our training for the sake of distraction. And so it's important to be aware of those and to see, how kind of insidious they are. It's so easy to fall into the trap of just time pass and distraction.
어다 디니다 탱이 나저 틴디레스 디니다 디기마텔라 나저다 지 노딘지 케메타와 로싱바리 테나 주지 심체메타와 당 테네 particular 직다 체메타와 세야 되네 마 나저 translation 지긴스
I think Tesla 저거로.
리다 데 좋아요
Okay. So tini de yang kongso la go nga idea che yorowa kongso gi yang samlo tang chogorwa de dang pom dang nyamdu de so yang de jigjingi metapa yang gare ngo zingyore de togya tini not so tsurle tu tini kongso tesa sharing che chogore. Okay. So this is what our contemplation is for today, based on what the reflection that we have here, really investigating the ways in which we see impermanence reflected in the outer world, and so we can spend this period now that we have, like in the next week, kind of bringing that into our own experience and reflecting in our own lives on the different ways in which we see the impermanence in the outer world. And then next week, we'll turn our attention then to the impermanence of the inhabitants, or the beings, living beings. So another assignment that Drong Rinpoche would like to give you is, in addition to, if you would like to compose your own poem, to also keep a running log maybe of what it is that you notice in the outer environment that is an expression of impermanence. So in your own lives, just bringing this reflection into your own experience, and paying attention and noticing, the signs of impermanence that you see in your own unique way, and maybe jotting them down. And then next week, when we come back together again, we'll also have an opportunity for some of you to share some of the different things that you witnessed, that you noticed, that you experienced with regard to impermanence in the outer world.
Okay, so they have some questions or comments.
Yeah, so are there any questions or comments that you might have?
Yes. So so what are the three poisons? It's anger, attachment,
Exactly.
and what is the
Ignorance.
third one?
The third one is ignorance or unawareness.
Ignorance. Okay. And I also have, I'm sorry, I don't feel that good. So what is self-grasping?
다 당지시야 디 다 가서 디 somno dikdang gore 당지시야 디 zo the first 로 당번에 하고 할래라 오래 nga 세 지도 될다 이제 말이스 이내 양다디 양가서 somno 야고 dikdang gore스.
So mainly it's the mind that says I. So it's the mind that has the kind of concept of a self, that
다 당지 될라 가서 somno 당고 다 가서 마타 마치빈 거 당지도 nga 지도 자친 보러와 레 자친 보러 of course 와 이내 양이 통다로 랍나 얘네 가서 통다 누구 요한으로 출구였을 때 오늘 내려와 이는 nga 장사 삼네 통다지 레카 칼라 액티비티 카리나야 통다 롭투고요 말스 이는 nga세야 자친 뭐 같이 하르나 나지 보고도 나지 보고도 다 nga야 보고도 섬 그러와 이는 든디제 기토는 다든지 뭔가 장사 효진 현라 섬노 강야 마타네 말에 야고 차야 요 말이스 현 땡고 요레스 드니 단기 휴가나 예레 드니 현팬 담지 랑데 주zon데 다 원이 지는 나 기보고도 나 대오고도 나 야보고요나 드니 당지트 빵토비나 드니 원이 지오다 대오용고요레스.
So because of this sense of self, I kind of being the center of our universe, then we're always kind of operating from this place of self-interest. That's the mind of self-grasping. And so we have a lot of clinging and attachment to this sense of self, and what we want, our own well-being, our own happiness. And so all of our activities are really kind of based on this pursuit of happiness and well-being for the self. But the interesting thing is that actually self-grasping functions in the exact opposite way that our self-grasping intends it to. So that when we're operating from that place of self-grasping, we think that we're doing things, we're pursuing things that our objectives are actually going to make us happy. They're going to achieve our own purpose, that they're for our own benefit, but often it's the opposite. And so what is kind of counterintuitive is that the more that we let go of this sense of and this sort of pursuit for our own happiness and well-being, and instead we're focused more on the welfare and benefit of others. We're more, operating more from a place of compassion and goodwill and the intention to benefit others, that actually is what ends up achieving our greatest benefit. So that is actually more productive for achieving happiness than the motivations of the mind of self-grasping.
Thank you. Yes, but if I realize self-grasping, that's when I get enlightened, right? It's a very big topic. I should not expect to understand on just the few classes I've had. Thank you.
Pena dagzin nune ha ko ayena. Tani pacher sanje go bang togarawa. Tani chikchina tinadi pena yang re dagzin gan nune ha ko na. Tani de sanje go bang dawo togarawa. Tani pacher lamsang koya kapo yojire. Tani yang de sentra kashe tani mato tani pacher de koya gi expectation do.
That is correct. This
Yes, it's true.
This understanding is not that difficult, I think. But
the conceptual
Realizing.
is difficult, but the realizing is difficult. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in these two sessions, we have been taught that time and impermanence are closely related. So Buddhahood is impermanent, or why is said that Buddhahood is not impermanent? That's my question.
The sanje the komala takparesro matabares.
So the dampo tenda pena jutsu dang metapa dawa champo yojire. Deni nune chine de sanje gopang de tapare metapare pacher de tata ko masongini yang tapa yemba labna de gari chine la gare.
Rita sanje koma seya de ngazo de terwa. Ta metabi alin de de wajirwa. Karsen beyond our concept chatioris.
So actually, we cannot say that the state of Buddhahood is impermanent or permanent. It is beyond the extremes of permanence and impermanence. It's beyond the realm of conceptual thought. So it really transcends it altogether.
Tanga to sem samlo tangrwa. Penacha havina. Ngato that samsam gong ya bo jamnetine sempe chik samlen samleta this moment chigla tene semjik this rank semjik rang so se thing hergioris that tender wo that ko chik this claims chungyung lo ina tele yang ko chik takpa yimba da meta ba yimba da yo wa do da me wonder we cannot explaining lo.
So you might, reflect based on your own experience, like meditation, for instance. Sometimes in meditation, you might have like some glimpse of something akin to the essence of awareness, like a sort of clear light moment, luminosity. And it's just a glimpse maybe, or there's some flavor that arises, and we can see in that moment, like we can't really say that is permanent or that is impermanent, Rebe.
네, impermanent. 간디스 요바디다.
There's nothing, we can't really pinpoint it. We can't say,
explanation.
we can't really explain it. So there's some understanding, based on experience that you can relate with in that maybe.
I have a question.
Mhm.
At the end of a kalpa, when the physical world has been destroyed, what has become of the consciousnesses of all beings? Do all consciousnesses continue into the next kalpa?
Re ta te re la udo nga so de ina nga so de ka tanda end of world this ro. Di karba de la di karba de khandi stong re la bina dene senjen being chama de ta tong ro res thambo. Di senjen being de khasina nga so karba de jibu nga so jibu mares. Nga so mayin ba tan de ro limitless yorwa. Dene leng himba la pon ro leng la bro. Leng himba la ta nga hi sang ji gre 얘네 다 대송도 깨끼리 마체지 리버레이션 차그 요사리 카르세나 당보 마 똥비 갑라 녀바 똥글라도 녀바 똥바차 테네 칼레 똥고 요사라와 테인디 테차 테네 이너 센체 빙 상마 똥바차 소나 테네 다 오르 칸디네테 단다도 fire disruption 차인데 메바 차그 요사라와 인타 consciousness 햄바 보노 요레스
So kalpa pena ngato kalpa mayemba ngato kalpa de zambuling samgime kyaba yore yini yang de dang duzu chikpa kalpa shimba yore be.
두수지가 말아와
그래.
이다 햄바를 보노 그래 라 트랜스
So what is said that what happens is that, and of course, like within our kalpa, we're not the only ones. They're like infinite world systems. And what it is said that at the end of a kalpa, what happens is that first, all of the beings like are emptied out of the different realms. So like from the hell realms to like the three lower realms, like all the way, up to the like, formless realms. Are emptied out, and then there is, and the consciousnesses of those beings are like they're emptied out temporarily, and then when another kappa begins, they are
No, they already exist. So yeah, you're
so they transfer elsewhere, kind of they go elsewhere. And then so when this process of destruction happens, so first it's the inner beings that are emptied out, and then the process of destruction happens with the different elements, water, wind, and fire, water, and wind.
이나다 까르바데 텔랍고도 까르바 똥베 까블라 lower rem니가 똥고 요레스 가르세도 냐르바나다 냐르바도 정말 보디바노 타기야 서로 냐르바치 티네 데 냐르바 톤도 메바치 티네 칼리 이네 양 something 다인가 히야 something 투구야 서로 something 라고 디스트럭션 요마로
So also it's at this period, there are also a lot of consciousnesses that are liberated at that time too. He had said before, actually, I forgot to mention that. But generally when this emptying out process happens, it happens from the lower realms up. And so, but then there are these beings in these like form and formless realms that are ephemeral, like they're states of meditative concentration. So those consciousnesses remain in those states because they're not destroyed by these physical elements, the destruction of the elements.
Thank you.
So that I misunderstood at first.
som도 그래
Du använder
So you have some questions or comments? If not, we can do dedication.
I'll ask a question
Okay.
that I go back and forth with and I struggle with, I guess, a lot in my mind, which is about like activism and wanting to help protect the earth and human rights. So I'm here right now in Chiapas, Mexico, which is the yeah, it's the southernmost state in Mexico that borders with Guatemala. And maybe some of you know there's a lot of violence here with different cartels and even the government and so much injustice. The indigenous people here have been robbed of their culture, of their land. And then not to mention just the everyday consumerism and pollution that's pervasive, like worldwide. And so yesterday I found myself just really sad and crying and kind of hopeless and just feeling like, yeah, pretty hopeless. But then I always come back to just this idea of impermanence and actually like the fundamental emptiness of everything. And so I'm like, okay, so I gather myself and I'm like, okay, like it's, this is all an illusion and ultimately, like fundamentally, everything is impermanent and empty. And so my question is like when we're finding our heart of bodhicitta and we want to help and we want to contribute love in the world, is there a place for like activism and helping, or is that grasping to what we want to stay? We want the earth to stay beautiful and in a way that we're attached to it. Or why don't we just like lay down and go in a cave somewhere and meditate? Like is like I don't know. Like I go back and forth with that.
Rita Tirawa. Rate de Rita nga to kangi samodona hansaya ke kugangi yorwa yoris. Yeah, very difficult, so in the world.
When we think about all of the difficulties, the suffering, the hardship, all of the injustices in the world, it can be very overwhelming. There's a lot of suffering.
Ina yanta nga tsoke kachigo lamna, as much as possible, ta chigro kachi toba, nga tsoke teyona, chigo sirwa.
But it is very noble to do what we can as much as possible to try to help any given situation.
Ina yang te zongo ta jowa jikten zongong ke tene rank nupa khasido telapa betene ko leka chigo gres.
However, Lord Jigten Sumgön advises that we need to do what is within our power to do,
Capable.
what we're really capable to do to help.
That's
and that's good. That's sufficient and that is enough.
Tene ina yang nga tsokiti agila karso problem sama sito guyo maris.
But we won't be able to clear away all the problems.
Tene da tele yang tene simple chigo maris.
And so we shouldn't be worried about those. Like we shouldn't be, we have to accept that.
Karsen reason karsen nga so tele worry yona tene nga tsok helping energy laptop guyo maris.
Because if we get over like bogged down by our worry about it, then we won't actually be able to help as much.
Tene tene ta can't talk about Latin,
So we do what we can, and we really rejoice in what we can do. Oh, and
Oh, I was just gonna say thank you.
yeah, that's really good, so right, but also, yeah, we can, so because this is we call it samsara, so there's everywhere, like all sorts of things, difficulties and problems. So yes, we have like motivation. We try to help, all the sentient beings. But so the action, physically, we cannot, so as much as we can help them. So that is our job, just be happy. So also otherwise, we cannot help, there may be no worry, So if some worry, and then really sometimes no energy to help the or problems or others.
Okay, thank
We
you.
have a question.
Dana?
Maybe I wonder if we mute, will that help for the question? If we mute during, maybe we'll mute, I'll mute and then you unmute.
Does this still echo?
Okay, maybe try mute. Now I'm echoing. Try muting the that one, and then you unmute, Donna. I'll mute again, and then you unmute. Let's try that one. That's not going to work. We have to be able to hear.
Okay. Is it
Okay.
echoing still or? So as a student, you mentioned, if you got to make time to practice the Dharma 9 times for it. As a college student, I just find it difficult to make that time and to come and practice. So I was just wondering, like, you would maybe advise for that, if you can understand.
Oh, I guess it wasn't working. We couldn't really fully hear that. I'm sorry. Do you want to maybe write it in the chat? Or Jupan says say it again.
He's going to write it in the chat.
Okay. Oh, that's another question. Okay, so in the meantime, we'll address this question that comes from Zoldi. What is the supreme highest realization of impermanence? What should we achieve at the highest, deepest comprehension of impermanence?
Rita, 가르친다 데려와. 강의나 양 메타 오기 때문에 바꿔야 들어와.
Yiniyante mitapaha goyagi topa chesho garere. Dene nune chine de nyamnyung de gandere. Nune mitapa topna gandedo.
다 메타바 또나 이내야 메타바데 고지 차자 친구 realization 로다 요사 마리스 이내야 메타바 또나 다 단기 techni라 임바 지 되네 조 갈세나 지 신디기 되네 현바데 되네 디스지 로그요 살아와 대단 대가 나 얘기 되네 조체고 존루자미야라 되네
So the realization of impermanence is not like, for instance, realizing Mahamudra, but can be this very heightened, keen sense of impermanence where it's seen at a very profound level. And the signs of that, or the result of that comprehension, is that you no longer have strong attachments to the phenomena of this life. There's a really lessened sense of attachment, and also
particular 데려와다
and we really also, one really feels inspired, like, to not waste any time. So one ends up using one's time very valuably, because there is a sense of how precious time is.
되네 다 믹스이케 되네 나도 첸델라 되네 템범도 자마다오지 되네 하고
And
위해서레스
there's also this understanding that nothing in this life is stable or reliable.
이나다 텔렉나도 sad 고마와
But we're not sad about it.
이나 양고 두두 요가 텔레비주치야지
But we understand what is really meaningful, and then we know how to use our time, not invested in the fleeting phenomena or the fleeting concerns of this life. So then the next question: as a college student, I find it hard to make time to practice the Dharma due to my studies. I was wondering what I could do to try and stay connected with my practice when I find it hard to find the time.
이나 양도 로브라도 뒤틀로 면도 라고로
Re gainsana lobjong che go gre dini yang de chu nyamlan che la tesakale kapo yore dini nune de chu che la tapshi yaksho gare yore te tuzu.
다 레이 코로나라바나 일레라고 요 말이스 와
Yes, certainly he can understand when you're you're studying, then it's definitely not easy to make the time.
이나 양다디 study 항상 계침이레스
And it is really important to do your studies. So you do want to have your priority to be, to complete your studies, to do your studies.
다디네 the priority 전 study at least in the meantime 양처럼 양로와 디니티네 드가 나이다 디게 냠들라드네 두소라비나 되네 중요하지 그래스
And so you want your priority to be your studies, but when you have time, then you try to use some of that free time that you have to practice the Dharma. And you're young, so you can have this intention, also to practice more as the time becomes available, and just to be skillful in how you allocate your time, making your studies your priority, but also trying to find some time to practice the Dharma too.
Okay, so now we do dedication.
By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings, and samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. And may the teachings of the great Rigumba Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Thank you. Mostly have good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
see
you.
Speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Drupal. Thank you very much, Virginia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun in Nepal.
Thank you.
You're in